Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam, ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, sister?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. You?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, should we just get straight into it?
Yep, let's go for it. Bismillah.
So I was sent a video. It was a short clip of a bigger podcast that was from the Free Muslims and the Hoop Finesse. Did I say that right?
Yes, Hoop Finesse.
The Free Muslims were doing a podcast on this brother and his story. Don't know much about him because I don't follow him. The only thing I know about him is from this podcast and from the very teeny tiny research I did today. We wanted to talk about this clip, but to just make sure that we did the clip justice, we did watch the full part of this topic from the actual podcast. They just want to point out, though, that after we did that, we weren't sure which part to talk about because there were so many sections that we could have done full videos to. Especially when it came to one particular topic. And I just want to point it out quickly to say that there was a lot mentioned about hijab. We could have done a full video on that today, just based on that section, but we don't want to do that because we've spoke about it many times. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to link the video that me and you have done, Sister Summer. We've done a reaction video on hijab before, so we're going to link that in the description. I've also done a video myself about NIQAB, which was also sort of mentioned in that section, so I'm going to put that in. Anybody who wants to know about NIQAB and hijab and look in the section, you also have a really good article that's sort of relevant to, you know, social media and sisters, etc., and hijab and that. Please check out the description and check out that content there. We are not going to cover it in this video. I think it's best we just focus on that short clip, inshallah. So I'm going to play it and then we're going to react, inshallah. Bismillah.
Sisters got mad at me and my brother for marrying non-Muslim women. Brother, there's so many sisters ready to marry you. Why would you marry a non-Muslim? She wanted a ring that was $100. You want $20,000. Sister, I can't afford you. You are worth $1 million. You're priceless. But my price is very simple. Your price is, I can't do it. Monetarily, can't do it. I can't afford you. I was in like 5 official Nadr Shari'iyas in Saudi Arabia. I couldn't afford them. They want this, they want pay. It's too much. And I love my Muslim sisters. But sister, and, you know, Umar anhu, he was giving a khutbah about the mahr. He was like, listen, sisters, you gotta chill with the mahr. And the sister stood up and she spoke for the women. She said, but Allah says in the Quran, it's our haqq. We can ask for what we want. Omar said, okay, you want to make the halal difficult? Make the halal difficult. And this is the fitna that we're facing today.
So let's just break the clip down because a few things have sort of been said, right? So in the first part, there's this objection to them pursuing non-Muslim women for marriage. Yeah, they said that sisters complained about them pursuing non-Muslim women for marriage. Then there was the issue of mahr, the talk of it being too high, etc., etc. And then to back that up, a hadith was mentioned. So I just want to touch on that hadith from the research that I've done. The first section of the hadith is sahih and has been classified as sahih. The section at the end where he mentions the sister objecting, that section has been classified as da'if, which means we cannot take it. It's not authentic. Not only that, even the part he mentions it after that about the Umar radiallahu anhu saying that, oh, you're going to make the halal difficult, then go ahead. That section, that's not even in the mutton. Like, that's not even in the wording of the hadith. So I just felt like it's really important that we clarify that. What should we talk about first other than that? Like, should we talk about the pursuing non-Muslim women or should we talk about the Mahr?
I think we should talk about pursuing non-Muslim women first.
The brother on the video, and I know we said we only going to get into this, so I'm just going to try and sort of touch on it. In the video, he did mention how he met his now Muslim wife, but she was non-Muslim when they got married. The thing is, I'm so happy that it worked out. I'm so happy to have another sister to the Ummah, to our sisterhood. I love her for the sake of Allah, and may Allah guide her and protect her in everything that she does. Ameen. There's a reason why we never put the clip up. We were going to react to that. We never put the clip up because we felt it was more important that we honour the sister. We didn't want to sort of repeat things that were said that we wouldn't want repeated for ourselves as reverts. We wouldn't have liked if our brother or someone else came out and said, you know, Aisha was like this, and you know, one day she did this, and one time she was out at that time of night, and we wouldn't want anybody speaking about us like that. So we didn't want to put that clip out there. The only reason why I'm touching on it though is, like, when you are having conversations, when you're meeting up with the opposite gender who are non-Muslim, you are putting yourself at risk. The guidance is not just not to commit zina, but also not to get near to zina, not even to take the small steps towards that. It's almost like you're given a free pass for people to put their intentions before the guidance. Like, he mentioned himself that he had good intentions, so he thinks Allah saw that and saw past the steps that he did take that weren't abiding by the guidance. But I mean, by you putting it out there to the whole Muslim community as if that's acceptable, then what you're doing is you're telling people, put your intentions. If you feel what you're doing is right, then go ahead and do it. Like, that's not the way it works, and that's definitely not the advice we give. The guidance is there for us. When we say we do something for the sake of Allah, it's not because Allah needs it. It's not for Allah's sake because Allah is dependent on it. We are dependent on Allah's guidance so that we don't end up walking towards or running towards these bigger sins, you know? I don't know if that made sense. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it's 100% like on point. MashaAllah, Allah Mubarak, really. Like, yeah, I even had it in like my notes as well about lowering the gaze, because I think this point is, you know, it is important. It's part of Ghira as well as her husband not to bring up this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I would expect that this kind of thing wouldn't be made public because it's not necessary for other people to know. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the fact that she's a Muslim now as well, it's like, it doesn't need to be anybody's business. And I think this is part of the issue with transparency or telling your truth or whatever nonsense that people the phrases that people come up with these days. It's like they feel that everybody has to just know everything about like your story, where you've been, who you are. And it's just like some things they don't need to be told. Other brothers might listen to that, and those brothers who might not have as much knowledge as you, they might not be as practicing as you, but they're going to take that as a green light then to go and talk to women who are not Muslim and feel that this is their contribution to the Ummah by giving dawah to non-Muslim women, which there's a lot of brothers already doing that. Do you know what I mean? And with how much success.
I mean, he even said it himself in the video. And again, just to point out, we are talking about what was said in the full podcast, not just this little clip. I mean, he even said that in that part that it was given dawah, right? And we're all for that. We are all for dawah. You know, if you work in the public sector, he said he was a taxi driver and he was giving dawah to his passengers. It's fantastic, absolutely amazing. But he even mentioned, whilst he was saying that though, that the shaitan was saying, you know, speak to these girls under the guise of dawah. You know, I'm really happy that he said that, because we have to be careful. Sometimes we do things and we think we're doing the right things, even though we're walking dangerous territory, like we'll say, oh, right, okay, because my intention's right, you know, I can do this. It is dawah, so this is now acceptable. Like we have to be careful that we don't make the haram halal. It's best not to make that look somewhat normal online for other brothers to see. And like you said, not everybody will have the knowledge that he has, or, you know, the strength he has to make sure he doesn't cross the bigger boundaries. Well, I think it's important that we clarify what marrying a non-Muslim woman means. It's not just any non-Muslim woman. The scholars say is it has to be women of the scriptures.
Muslim man can marry women from the people of the book, Jews and Christians, but there are conditions. She has to be chaste. But a lot of women today who say they are Christian, practicing Christians, women are not going to be at 4 o'clock in the morning getting Uber. That's not likely. That's what I'm going to say. Sorry.
I think that's a really good point that you've made there, because just because they're from a Christian country doesn't make them by default Christian.
Exactly.
You know, like we're living in the day of, you know, socialism and liberalism and atheism, and there's so many within these countries. We can't really call them Christian countries anymore if we're honest, because the state is separated from the religion. It's important that people know that there are conditions to marrying non-Muslim women. Again, it's that, what is the example that you're given? If you are dressed like a Muslim, if you talk like a Muslim, then you're representing Islam, and great responsibility comes with that. He was frustrated at Muslim women advising him. He's like, you know, Muslim women are angry at me for pursuing non-Muslim women.
His brother as well. I'm listening to the actual podcast, the full podcast episode. He mentions that this is the second non-Muslim woman that he's married.
But it's just like, right, okay, if these women are advising you to go for Muslim women, don't you think that actually they're doing that for the sake of Allah and not because they are bitter and biased, or they have this thing against non-Muslim women? Assuming he's talking about maybe his mother or his sister, because I'm sure he's not talking to just any Muslim woman. Not any Muslim woman who's coming to him and saying this. So it'll probably be his family members, his sisters, maybe, you know. They'll be doing that for the sake of Allah. They want the best for you. They want you to have kids who have, you know, a really strong, believing mother who raises them well, right? So, like, why is this all negative? Why is there, like, this dark cloud over this part of the video? I just didn't like it. Let me just say that I got a lot of sisters that talking to me about this specific part. We assume the best of intentions from the brother, so we're not, you know, accusing the brother or anything or attacking him. But I think the sisters felt slightly frustrated because they felt like they were misrepresented, let's say. Yes, we have extremes on high mahars, but we also have extremes of men seeking out vulnerable women to get low mahars in order to marry them and have easy divorce. It would be wrong for us to come out and brand this brother or any other brothers who ask for a low mahar, to brand them like this. It would be wrong because it's a misrepresentation of men as well as the deen. What does the deen say when we are told to look for a spouse? What is the guidance? It's not about your experience and this, that and the other. I took for you, that's good, but it's not the standard. The advice is to pursue Muslim women.
How would you know that you approach a non-Muslim woman, she's going to ask for a low mahar? It's not like there's a sign on the woman's forehead saying my mahar is this. Do you know what I mean? Because she could have turned around and said, well, actually, I want a big wedding. I want this. I want bridesmaids. How many bridesmaids? I need a wedding dress. A wedding dress itself can be thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Just a dress.
Especially in the West.
Exactly. There's a saying, okay, we have it like a cultural saying. Somebody's got champagne taste, but Kool-Aid money. Okay. So sisters get told all the time, we need to lower our standards. But brothers, which kind of women are you looking at that they're coming up with these higher mahar? Surely you need to lower your expectation. People have different amounts according to their standard of living, okay, according to what they're accustomed to. If you've gone to Saudi Arabia, been in 5 situations where, you know, the family are asking for 1,000, if that's the standard of living according to that family, then brother, you was obviously aiming too high. and you wouldn't be able to afford the standard of living that sister is accustomed to living to. You as a man should be looking at particular qualities for the mother of your children, the potential mother of your children.
Mahr isn't just something that we can just talk about like wishy-washy. Like there's so many factors to it. You've got urf, I can't say, I'm not good at the pronunciation.
Which is the customs.
The cultural and the customs, exactly. What is normal in a country and a community, even in the woman as an individual, her life, she might have a certain living standard. So even that gets to consideration. The man, his job, his culture and everything will get taken into consideration as well. Not only that, it's not just about what the woman wants. Her guardian also plays a part in this, the wali. There's so many factors, and I feel like it was just another man in amongst this red pill time telling all women to lower the mahr. I think it's a really dangerous bit of advice.
It's basically lower your mahr or we're going to marry non-Muslim women, basically.
Yeah, I know he didn't say that straight out, but that's the vibe that it got.
Actually look for sisters who want a reasonable one, which there's plenty. When I heard it, I just thought that's utterly ridiculous. It's just asking for a high mahr. It's the exception. It's not the norm. Chances are the brother can afford it. Not every brother can, but I'm just saying chances are the brother can afford it. And also, maybe she doesn't want a high mahr, but maybe it's the parents pushing that on her, that they are telling her, you must ask for this, you must ask for that. Because it does happen.
Yeah. On the opposite side, if the sister is asking for mahr that's too low, she's just sort of giving into red flags and stuff like that. So if the wali is saying no, this is what we want and this is reasonable, and if it is, then the wali will take precedence over what the potential wife is taking. How many stories have we heard where women have reduced their mahr to pretty much nothing, then they've got married and then very quickly they've got divorced? What would you expect for your daughters? What would you be worried about in this area? We spoke about this in the last video, right? We were talking about marriage contracts, using the flexibilities of giving up rights and all the rest of it. But what's always missing in these stories is that selflessness and sort of care and want for the other people involved. Yes, we have one extreme where women are asking for high mahr just because a sense of entitlement, let's just say. Then you've got on the other side guys who want pretty much little to no mahr so that they can just marry without any of the real processes to marriage. Where is the Muslim character in this situation? Where is the woman taking into consideration of the man's job, finances? Where is that man's honour and wanting to give, a reasonable gift, a gift of her standards, her culture, her norms? Like, where is the honour? So it is frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Like, if you can't afford the mahr of the girl, then most likely you can't afford her standard of living anyways, and that would render you, like, to some level incompatible. So that's a good indication that she isn't the one for you anyway. I did actually leave a comment on the video itself, but I touched on this where, some countries, they're doing this thing called engagement, which is not in Islam anyways, but families are requesting for brothers to basically buy so many types of gifts, having parties, all this kind of thing, maybe even kitting out a whole apartment. And then, without even having a marriage contract in place. And then the family, if they decide that they no longer want this guy, then they just cancel the whole thing and they keep all the gifts. So the brothers are getting scammed. Low income countries, that's happening sometimes as well. So we have this problem, but part of the issue is that it's people's greed, isn't it? People are, being greedy, and they're not adhering to the sunnah. They're not thinking about the rights of others. And in this way, a lot of parents are actually harming their daughters, because if you, if you're using your daughters for monetary gain, then, you're not helping her in her future life. People need to think about the quality of the man himself. and you know how he's going to treat the daughter. And it does work both ways as well, because definitely you don't want to just give your daughter for nothing, like you mentioned, and maybe the man's going to mistreat her because he doesn't value her. You know, it's something he got easily, so he doesn't respect, because the mahar itself, it's a gift, and it's a gift to the woman, the bride, not to her family. It's hurting the ummah, yeah, because then there's brothers who can't get married, sincere brothers who are practicing, and you know they just want to get married, they just want to do the halal in their own country,
yeah,
and they can't get married because the mahar will be ridiculous price, or they can't get married because
of
the wedding is another something, or they can't get married because they're not the same color, or they're not the same tribe, and all these things that have nothing to do with Islam at all, nothing to do with a reason to turn down somebody. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, don't check the hadith later, but he says that if a man comes and he has good character and good deen, then you should marry your daughter to him, because if you don't, there's going to be corruption in the land. And what do we see now? You know, the halal has been made difficult. The haram is become widespread. I've seen this firsthand. A good brother, he's got a job. He's able to, you know, keep the girl, you know, according to her already living standards that she has. But the parents don't want that, because, they want her to level up with their marriage. Yeah. They feel that this daughter, she's attractive and she's beautiful, that means that they can get somebody better than this brother who is practicing, but he has a moderate standard of living and moderate means. Family itself is the building blocks of this ummah. That's what we want when we're getting married, when we're choosing a spouse. And that's why it's important as well, you know, coming back to the point that we was talking about earlier on. This is why, even though a Muslim man is allowed to marry a woman who is Jewish or Christian, you know, that's something he shouldn't be desperate to do, because you need to think about the tarbiyah of your children. The woman that you're choosing, inshallah, she'll be the future of your kids, future mother of your children. So how will she educate them and teach them? How she's going to bring them up? In the full podcast, he does go into advising Muslim men, like, you know, if they want to marry a non-Muslim. I know a sister personally, mashallah, amazing sister. She's really lovely. But she was a non-Muslim when she married to her Muslim husband. And they had children, and she remained a non-Muslim for many years. And I think it wasn't until maybe their second child became like age 10. Her first two children now, they've been raised all this time without having that tarbiyah that a Muslim woman would be automatically expected to give to her children. Because this woman, she isn't Muslim. So then the husband has to go to greater lengths, and you're living in a non-Muslim country, not even a Muslim country, where the society already is against you when it comes to the tarbiyah of your children and how they will be raised. And if you got them in the public school system as well, that's another something too. We know the fitna of that. And as a result, the second child is not a Muslim, even though the mother is a Muslim now.
Well, definitely, these choices should not be taken lightly. We're not saying that all non-Muslim women are not fit for marriage. It's permissible, it's allowed, but it should not be our go-to. Also, one thing that I would like to mention is, like, you know, I didn't see the Free Muslims really give much feedback. I know at least one of them is a student of knowledge, mashallah, tabarakallah. I want that to be understood, that anything I say is said with sincerity and respect. Obviously, when things are live, you really don't have a lot of control, and I understand and respect that. But I was just sort of surprised to see that it was also took from the main podcast, edited, and then put onto another social media platform, because I think when you're on a live, it's easy to sort of miss these things. When you're taking it out, you're editing it and then putting on another social media, it's just like, just be a wee bit more careful.
Whatever the brother said, he said it, and it's out there. You know, we do our discussions together. I prefer to have my discussions usually pre-recorded, because if I say some foolishness, I can cut it off, and nobody needs to come to me on the day of judgment and say, well, Sister Summer said X and Y and Z.
Transparency is great, but not at the expense of the deen. You know, hiding your sins or taking something out because even though you've done it, it's still wrong. All of that doesn't compromise your transparency. That doesn't make you a hypocrite.
Like, when you expose the sins that Allah covers, then you're putting yourself in a position where you coming out of Allah's forgiveness, basically. You know what I mean? Allah's covering your sins, and you come and expose them to the public. And this is social media. It's not just like the public, like you just want to stand outside maybe in your little village and say, well, you know, I did this yesterday. This is social media where like hundreds of millions of people can get access to and hear, you know, what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? And like hear things about you that you might very well regret later on. So we have to be careful with these things. What is the benefit of you know, posting this online? Is it going to benefit society? Is it going to benefit you on the day of judgment? This is the big one. That's the main concern that we all need to have. You don't need to tell everybody your business. It's not a lie if you keep your personal life private. You know,
exactly. Like we always end up touching on this in every video, but it always comes back to the balance. Yes, it is good to give a little bit of who you are, your character, your experience and stuff like this, because people want to know who they're listening to, and you know, like it has its place, but that shouldn't be at the compromise of the deen first and foremost. It shouldn't be at the compromise of your image. It shouldn't be done recklessly. I just feel that more responsibility should be there. I think the reason why we came on here and felt the need to talk about it is because here was just to sort of do the other side a wee bit of justice. That's always what we find ourselves doing. And these reaction videos, it's not to demonise the people involved. Our videos speak for themselves in that. I would also say to the brothers, if you feel like we have misrepresented, I mean, feel free to comment. Like we have no problem in taking back anything that we have said wrong, inshallah. Obviously, when it comes to these subjects, everybody should be looking at the sources, the evidences, what the scholars say. They shouldn't just be listening to the layman on YouTube. Shaykhas, we do not claim to be. Any mistakes that we have made in this video is from us, and may Allah forgive us. But yeah, do you want to end on the dua?
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.